the government dumped so much money in, like just irresponsible, and everyone could see this coming. Yeah. So of course we have inflation going nuts and everything else. But ultimately, I think I'm hugely concerned about like where the value of the dollar goes. Do we stay the world's currency? Maybe if you could kind of talk about that. What's your belief around that? What should people know about that? Because I think it's a huge thing going on right now.
So I think like the current market, like what we're kind of seeing with the hyperinflation and interest rates rising and stuff, it's actually, you know, from our vantage point, you could say it's like an overheating from what was actually done a couple years ago during the COVID time period. Of course. You know, where we didn't know where things were going to shake out when COVID hit. And so I think, you know, Capitol Hill's, you know, executive decision was, well, we're going to pump some dollars into the bloodstream and hope that you know, keeps things, that revives and keeps some companies afloat. And I think hindsight's always 20/20, but you know, what we learned was that our economy's actually, you know, was quite strong and resilient, and with all those new dollars, you know, floating around, like, you know, it took things to overheated. Yeah. So now they're trying to find an equilibrium where they're like, all right, well, we got to get this back into kind of like into the zone, and so right now it's like, you know, bad economic news is like good market news. You know, it's like they're purposely trying to increase unemployment rates and
why is the economy still not slowing down though? Like, you know, like the stock market's still going up, real estate's still going up, even though they're trying to slow the economy with inflation.
We've seen some categories, like, you know, you see some slowdown like in private equity, like VC. You see it in some real estate sectors, like office specifically. I think we've seen some of that, right? Because there's still a lot of uncertainty around, you know, what businesses are going to do once their leases are up, you know, because you still have pre-COVID leases that are hanging out there. So you're still seeing, like, in some categories, like some, you know, I don't know if carnage is the right word, but definitely some reversion, you know, and then, but yeah, like, and then in 2022, you also have to remember, like, markets are always forward looking. So it's going to respond around where the sentiment of the general market is. So if they're like, oh, you know what, the Fed announced that they're going to slow down rates over the next, you know, later half of the year, like there's going to be less rate increases, and they're even making plans to maybe decrease rates in 2025. Well, that's like positive news, even though it hasn't materialized yet. So people in the marketplace are like, oh, that gives me more hope. And so they become more confident. And so then they start to invest. And so prices start to go up. So
yeah, I think especially with real estate, the market is more so what people think is going to happen. So it's like the hope for it, or you know, it's not what's happening right now. It's like, wait, where do we see this thing going? I think part of the problem right now that we see in some sectors, real estate's kind of a tricky one right now.
It is. Yeah, it's tricky.
But I think it's because people don't know where anything's going. It's like, I think it's harder than ever to gauge where things are going. We thought the economy was going to have this giant slowdown, and it hasn't. It's like they've pulled every crank and lever they can to keep it moving, but at what point do they pull the wrong one and it does fall apart a little bit?
Yeah, like people hate uncertainty. They become very nervous when there's like lack of clarity around what's going to happen, which is why, like, you know, in an election year, for example, which is what we're in right now, you know, you might see a little bit of you know, extra volatility in markets, because people are like, oh, well, depending upon who's in office, if it's you know, Republican, Democrat, like who's in control, how does that impact, you know, my investments? And so people get a little bit nervous and things get a little bit choppy. But what we've also seen is that post election years, you know, market performance has actually been surprisingly very strong, because, you know, people, they settle in with like, okay, here's the candidate. Now I know. And then they realize, like, well, the world isn't ending. You know what I mean? Like, we're still here doing our thing. And you know, people's confidence goes back up and things rebound. And there's all, I'm totally generalizing this and simplifying this. There's so many other factors at play, you know, but the point I'm trying to make is that, things that may freak us out, such as like a presidential election, a certain candidate who we may not be confident in or whatever. I think we can overreact to that, and then you realize like, no,
it's almost like a testament to the American economy that despite, I mean, let's just call it what it is. The dude in office has dementia. Like it's like the guy in charge is does not even know how to put his shoes on in the morning, and the economy's running fine.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? It's like you could make an argument that it's really should boost confidence.
Yeah.
Like what if we get somebody in there that's competent and knows what they're doing?
Well, look, every morning that we wake up, there are millions of people around the world, not just in America, but when everybody wakes up, no one's getting out of, well, I can't say nobody, but most people are not getting out of bed saying to themselves, I'm going to do what I can to digress, in whatever field of labor that I'm in. Most people are waking up in the morning and even if they aren't overly ambitious or whatever, are probably showing up at work saying to themselves like, okay, I'm going to do something to progress the efforts. And so you have the collective, I think it's actually really cool, right? Like, where you have a collective body across a country or across the world, everybody's trying to improve. And I think that shows that shines through generally in an economic way. And that's why I got asked the other day, like, oh, markets hit an all-time high. Like, should we be expecting a correction? And I'm like, well, markets hit all-time highs all the time.
Sure.
Because we're waking up all the time trying to progress it. You know what I mean? So,
I like that attitude. It's like, the story of humanity is the story of, as a collective, is trying to improve the lives from the previous generation, right? It's like everybody's trying to improve upon whatever the past was.
Yeah, that's right.
I really like that perspective.
That's right.
What about AI? Any concerns about AI and what that's going to do to the economy?
Artificial intelligence, I am not the right guy there.
From a financial standpoint, Nvidia just became the most
second.
It's number one now.
Is it number one?
Just passed Apple. It's the biggest company in the world.
That was like today.
$3 trillion, man.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, like,
did you buy any stock in Nvidia?
I have stock in Nvidia.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice work.
I didn't buy it today, but I have stock.
Well, it'd be better to not buy it today.
That's right. Yeah.
Better to buy it a long time ago.
Yeah. Look, the age old wisdom, it's like, what do they say? Like when Walmart became, hit the map, right? As a big company, people were like, okay, this is putting all of the local, grocery marts out of business and everything like that. But economics 101 is like, well, there's just a shift, right? People, it's gonna impact some people, in a bad way, but it's also going to create jobs in another way. And so I think AI, to use that analogy, I think, and again, this is completely off the cuff. Like, I'm not going to profess to be an expert here, but there's probably going to be some areas in which AI, revolutionizes, how the way that we do business and the way that the world works. And I think that's going to create opportunities for some people. It's going to put some businesses in a jeopardizing spot, but I think collectively, again, the world will go on, and there'll be opportunity for most.
Yeah, I saw something the other day. I really liked about AI. They said like basically AI is going to get so good at writing things that people are going to crave more than ever the in-person stuff.
Sure.
You can see the person and actually talk. And so I was like, I like that, because all my stuff is face-to-face events, in person speaking. Yeah. I love all that stuff. And so
we're still humans. We're still like having a human experience.
People want to be around each other. They want to have a human experience. Exactly. They want to, connect. Yeah. Like truly connect. And I think AI, I think there's a disconnect there still. I mean, maybe who knows where it goes.